For 4 centuries, the pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom ruled with strength, strategy, and divine authority. But even the mightiest dynasties crack. This time, the crown isn't threatened by native rulers, but by foreign Asiatics who claimed the delta using a horrifically mobile new technology on the plains. This is the tale of an empire at its lowest, the stormy night, before a new kingdom's dawn. In the mid-17th century BCE, a new foreign dynasty rose to power in Lower Egypt. These were rulers of foreign lands, the Hyksos, who established Egypt's 15th dynasty. The native Egyptian 13th dynasty, a mere shell of their predecessors' might, fled their capital in Middle Egypt, back to Thebes in Upper Egypt, before dissolving. The Hyksos also absorbed the 14th dynasty, a minor dynasty of Canaanite rulers in the Delta. They made their capital at Avaris, a strategically located delta city on the Pelusiac branch of the Nile. More militaristic than the 14th dynasty, Hyksos kings like Sakirha, Kian, and Apepi extended authority over Lower Egypt and up into Middle Egypt as far south as Kusai, near Asyut. This conquest did not occur overnight, beginning with migration and settlement, followed by the seizure of power amid the political fragmentation between the 13th and 14th dynasties. By 1650 BCE, the Hyksos had effectively ended what remained of centralized Middle Kingdom rule and founded their own dynasty, positioning themselves as pharaohs of a divided Egypt. For those who don't know, our channel tries to share history from all over the world, but have never done ad reads or spoken to advertisers. All we ask is to subscribe if you enjoy these historical journeys, and if possible, consider becoming a member, and we can finish this project together. Hyksos rulers adopted many trappings of Egyptian kingship while introducing elements of their Levantine heritage. Avaris became a cosmopolitan hub within a Middle Bronze Age trade network. Excavations unearthed Canaanite-style pottery industries such as Tel El Yehudiyeh ware, a distinctive punctate-decorated ceramic found in both Egypt and Canaan. Bronze working, biconical arrowheads, and other technical influences from Western Asia appear at Hyksos sites. The Hyksos introduced 3 technologies to Egypt that would revolutionize warfare: the horse and chariot, the composite bow, and the Kopesh sword. This era saw an influx of Asiatic mercenaries and new weapons, giving the Hyksos a martial edge on the plains of the Egyptian Delta. It also appears the Hyksos established new military and commercial connections, securing timber, metals, and resins with the Levant, and in return exported looted Egyptian objects, like statues and precious items, to Canaan and Syria. Hyksos administration blended foreign and Egyptian practices. They maintained Avaris as a fortified seat of government, and according to later traditions, heavily garrisoned it. Manetho claimed they built strong walls and stationed 240,000 troops there, likely an exaggeration. Archaeology shows no dramatic destruction layer at Avaris from their initial takeover, suggesting a relatively smooth transition of power from the 14th dynasty. Lower Egypt was directly ruled by the Hyksos, and they may have exercised loose control over Middle Egypt through client chiefs or by intimidation. Upper Egypt remained under native dynasties, but later Egyptian literary tales like the Quarrel of Apophis and Sekenenre, a satirical New Kingdom text, claim that the entire land paid tribute to King Apophis, bringing all the fine produce of Egypt. Whether or not these kings of the south paid tribute to the encroaching Asiatics, the Hyksos did integrate Egypt's economy into a wider network. Avaris, linked to Cyprus, thrived as a port for copper and possibly Minoan Crete. Culturally, the Hyksos ruled as pharaohs, but also brought Levantine flavor to Egypt. Temples in Avaris existed in both traditional Egyptian style and in Canaanite style. The Hyksos elite worshipped Egyptian gods but showed special favor to a Canaanite storm deity, Baal. Baal became identified with the Egyptian god of storm and desert, Set. In later tradition, they were remembered as those who worshipped no god but Seth, casting the struggle for Egypt as a holy war between the Theban patron god Amun and the Hyksos god Set. In reality, the Hyksos did honor other Egyptian deities as well. Votive objects have been found, dedicated by Hyksos kings to Ra, Hathor, Sobek, and Wajet, indicating they participated in Egyptian religious customs. They also appropriated earlier Egyptian royal monuments, like the so-called Hyksos sphinxes. These sphinx statues were of the 12th dynasty king Amenemhat III, that Hyksos rulers usurped and inscribed with their own names. While the Hyksos did wrap themselves in pharaonic imagery, they maintained their West Semitic names and the iconography of their storm god, like shown wielding a mace with an upraised arm, a motif found across the Near East. It was an era of intense cultural exchange, as Levantine styles in art and weaponry entered Egypt, while Hyksos rulers took on Egyptian titles and built monuments in Egyptian style. But this hybrid court at Avaris would face growing resistance from the south. While the Hyksos controlled the Delta and Middle Egypt, Upper Egypt coalesced under native Egyptian rulers based in Thebes. After the weak 13th dynasty dissolved, the 16th dynasty took power, but are not well attested. They could have been independent or vassals of the Hyksos. They could have had Canaanite origin or been native Thebans. Whichever the case, their chronology remains uncertain, and after a few decades transitioned into the 17th dynasty. We are more certain these kings were both Theban and independent, keeping a tense peace with the 15th dynasty, ruling approximately from Abydos down to the First Cataract. It's possible a shadowy dynasty ruled from this ancient burial site, from a royal necropolis at the foot of the mountain of Anubis. Whether or not this was a true dynasty, or just a series of confident nomarchs, the mysterious Abydos dynasty had disappeared by the time of the 17th. The Theban kingdom was smaller and poorer than the unified Egypt of the Middle Kingdom, under kings like Amenemhat and Senusret. Many of the resource-rich regions, the Delta's farmland, Sinai's mines, and Nubia's gold were all cut off. Still, the Theban rulers upheld Egyptian traditions and nurtured ambitions to reunify the two lands. They continued building modest temples and tombs, and they fostered nationalism centered on the god Amun. For a time, Egypt existed as a duality, a foreign-ruled north and an Egyptian-ruled south, each content to coexist. But tensions gradually rose. According to later legend, it was the Hyksos king Apophis who initiated the conflict by sending a provocative demand to the Theban king Sekenenre Tau. In the letter, Apophis complained that Thebes' hippopotamus pool was too noisy, despite the over 400 miles separating the two cities. This story is likely fiction, a parable casting Apophis as an unreasonable tyrant, but hints at the legendary spark that ignites a liberation struggle for Thebes. Sekenenre Tau appears to have led the first open challenge to Hyksos authority. His mummy, discovered in Deir el-Bahari, bears horrific head wounds, axe and dagger strikes, implying he died violently, possibly in battle or by execution during a clash with Hyksos forces. Thebes remained subdued, but the war for Egypt's liberation was just beginning. Sekenenre's wife, Queen Ahotep, and his sons, Kamose and Ahmose, would carry on the struggle. They had ample motivation, not only national pride, but also strategic necessity, because a second threat was looming in the south. Thebes found itself squeezed between two foreign powers, and its rulers realized that to survive, they would have to defeat one foe at a time. The mud-brick Western Defufa temple at Kerma, capital of the first great Nubian kingdom, exemplified the power and distinct culture of Kush during the Second Intermediate Period. While Egypt was divided, Kerma, near the Third Cataract, grew into a formidable state. The city itself, though modest in population, with perhaps 2,000 residents during its early phases, had flourished for 1,000 years and was about to enter a final phase. During the Middle Kingdom, Egypt had established a line of fortresses at the Second Cataract to secure Lower Nubia and control trade. But as the central Egyptian state faltered, Kerma's rulers seized the opportunity. They recaptured northern Nubia from Egypt, pushing beyond the Second Cataract and overrunning the Egyptian forts. The fortress of Buan, Egypt's stronghold just north of the Second Cataract, was taken by the Kushites sometime during the waning 13th dynasty, and it remained in Kushite hands for about a century. Soon after the fall of the Middle Kingdom, all of Lower Nubia had effectively fallen under the Kingdom of Kerma. The rise of Kerma was not just military, but also economic and cultural. Kushite control of trade routes meant they could funnel gold, ivory, ebony, and exotic products northwards on their own terms. The Kerma culture developed luxurious industries of their own. Fine pottery, metalwork, and faience workshops have been found near the Defufa temple. Blue faience jewelry and glazed quartzite inlays show technical innovation independent of Egypt. By 1700 BCE, Kerma's classic phase, populations swelled above 10,000, indicating a complex society. In some of the grand tumuli of Kerma's final phase, archaeologists found Egyptian motifs and objects, amulets of Egyptian gods like Horus, and even imported Egyptian pottery. Tel El Yahudia-style juglets from the Hyksos-controlled delta have been discovered in Kerma royal tombs. Even as Kush was a rival to both Thebes and Avaris, it was economically intertwined with them. By the mid-16th century BCE, Egypt was still divided into three spheres: Hyksos in the north, Thebans in the middle, and Kushites in the south. The Theban 17th dynasty was now led by the son of Seqenenre-Tau, King Kamose, who found himself in a precarious geopolitical vice as the war continued. The Hyksos pharaoh Apophis still reigned in Avaris, while the Kushite king remained in Kerma. The Kushites, for their part, did not remain passive. A remarkable inscription in the tomb of Sobeknak II, a governor of El Kab, in Upper Egypt just south of Thebes, records a massive Nubian invasion during the later 17th dynasty. It could have been in retaliation for an earlier raid by the Thebans. Sobeknak describes how an army of Kushites, and even allies from the land of Punt, descended on Upper Egypt in a surprise attack. The text, written in red paint on the tomb walls, recounts how El Kab's defences were hastily fortified and a counterattack launched. Sobeknak claims victory over the invaders, attributing his success to the local vulture goddess Nekbet. He vividly portrays the outcome, as the Nubian forces were routed, and in gratitude he furnished Nekbet's temple with new offerings, including a bark of electrum. With the Nubian threat dealt with, Kamose had a decision to make. His council was happy with the status quo and coexistence with the Hyksos. We are tranquil in our part of Egypt. Elephantine is strong, and the middle part of the land is with us as far as Kusay. Men till for us the finest of their lands. Our cattle pasture in the papyrus marshes. Corn is sent for our swine. Our cattle are not taken away. He holds the land of the Asiatics. We hold Egypt. But Kamose was like his father, filled with nationalistic pride. No man can be at ease when they are besieged on both sides. One king in Avaris and another in Kush, and I sit united with an Asiatic and a Nubian. I will grapple with him that I may rip open his belly. My wish is to save Egypt and to smite the Asiatic. It was time to turn resistance into war. In year 3 of his reign, the War for Liberation began. Kamose led the 17th dynasty's forces in a daring campaign northward. His inscriptions, notably 2 victory stelae from Thebes, narrate these exploits as he describes sailing north with Theban troops and surprising the Hyksos. Kamose claimed to have defeated a Hyksos garrison at Nefruzi near Hermopolis with his Medjay soldiers, and then ravaged the Delta heartland. In his bombastic words, he chastised the Asiatics and took many spoils. From Avaris, the Hyksos king knew there was only one way to stop the Egyptian offensive. He attempted to forge an alliance with the Kerma king, aimed at squeezing Thebes. But there was just one problem. On Kamose's second stele, the Theban king recounts intercepting a messenger from the Hyksos king bound for Kerma, carrying a letter proposing the alliance. The letter, as paraphrased by Kamose, urged Kush to hurry north with troops and launch an offensive like they had at El Kab, promising to divide Egypt between them once Thebes was crushed. So, to negate further contact between the Hyksos and Kerma, Kamose raided the Baharia oasis, blocking the desert road linking the two kingdoms. Kamose used the papyrus message as propaganda to justify to his council a full-scale war on Avaris, continuing the offensive as far as the outskirts of the Hyksos capital itself. He boasts of sacking outposts and intercepting supplies, even mentioning the capture of their innovative chariots, ships and metal ingots. In one fragmentary stela, Kamose recounts how he plundered Hyksos caravans laden with gold, lapis lazuli, silver, and precious oils bound for Avaris. Though Kamose's offensive likely shook the Hyksos, he did not succeed in taking Avaris outright. After a few years of fighting, Kamose's reign was cut short. It's possible he died during a second campaign into Nubia to retake Buhan fortress, or against the Asiatics according to a later narrative. But without a body, Kamose's exact fate will stay one of the second intermediate period's enduring mysteries. Nonetheless, the task of final victory fell to his younger brother, Ahmose I, meaning the moon is born. Ahmose proved to be the perfect successor, a great unifier and conqueror. Early in his reign, he resumed the northern campaign. The story is partly told through the autobiography of another Ahmose, son of Ebanah, a soldier from El Kab who served in the royal army. According to his tomb inscription, the young pharaoh reached the Hyksos capital and besieged Avaris, engaging in fierce battles on both land and river. But while Ahmose was preoccupied with Avaris, the southern front also demanded attention. Just as the Thebans had feared, the Kushites made an opportunistic advance. Ancient records and Ahmose's own monuments indicate that a Nubian force under a local ruler named Ata attempted to strike northward during the siege. Ahmose responded decisively to this two-front threat. He dispatched a portion of his army, a naval squadron on the Nile, to sail south and confront the Nubians. In the fighting that ensued, Ahmose's forces killed the Nubian leader Ata and scattered his troops. With Kushite pressure temporarily relieved, Ahmose could finish off the Hyksos. Ahmose had started implementing chariots in his army, based on those captured from the Hyksos by his father. And after several assaults, Avaris crumbled under Ahmose's forces, marking the end of Hyksos rule in Egypt. The Hyksos king, by then likely Kamudi, successor to Apepi, fled the delta with his followers. Some retreated to the fortress of Sharuhen in southern Canaan, a Hyksos stronghold in the desert. But Ahmose, determined to eliminate the threat at its source, pursued them across Sinai. The siege of Sharuhen reportedly lasted 3 years before the city was taken, and the last Hyksos holdouts crushed. This punitive expedition not only avenged the humiliation of foreign rule, but also inaugurated Egypt's new policy, one of securing its borders by building an empire, which we will get to next episode. Following the fall of Sharuhen, Ahmose was able to place his full attention on Kerma, and quickly led a campaign into Nubia to reclaim Egypt's old territory. He sailed up the Nile with his army and likely retook the lost fortresses one by one. Buhan, Magissa, and other forts that had been in Kushite hands were recaptured and refortified. The recaptured fortress of Buhan was occupied by Egyptians once more, ending roughly a century of Kushite control. The final subjugation of the kingdom would come a bit later, but Ahmose's campaigns laid the groundwork by reasserting domination up to the Second Cataract. After over a century, the Hyksos had finally been expelled from Egypt, and the Nubian advance halted and reversed. The triumphant Ahmose I reunited Upper and Lower Egypt under Theban rule, officially inaugurating the 18th dynasty, and with it, Egypt's new kingdom. To honor this achievement, Ahmose and his mother, Queen Ahotep, were awarded the Golden Flies of Valor, and Ahotep's elaborate tomb treasure, discovered in Thebes, even included a ceremonial axe depicting Ahmose smiting a Hyksos warrior, a potent symbol of victory. The Thebans had not only driven out the foreign rulers, but vowed to go on the offensive, ensuring no such invasion or division would happen again. The century of Hyksos domination and Nubian ascendancy left an indelible impact on Egypt. The wars of liberation taught the Thebans the value of new military technologies and strategies. In the new kingdom, Egyptian armies eagerly adopted the horse-drawn chariot, both that chariot technology itself, but also the domesticated horse. They also refined the use of composite bows, turning the weapons once used by their foes into instruments of imperial expansion. The Kopesh, a sickle-shaped sword, had also entered Egypt from Western Asia during the Second Intermediate. Ahmose and his successors established a standing military elite, many of whom, like Ahmose, son of Ibana, were decorated veterans of the Hyksos Wars, who would go on to conquer even more territory in later campaigns. The memory of the Hyksos occupation fueled a new attitude. The expulsion of the Hyksos paved the way for Egyptian ambitions in the Levant. The confrontation with Kush led the new kingdom pharaohs to venture south. But for now, the Hyksos are gone. Egypt is whole again, but not the same. The kings of Thebes have learned the price of weakness and the power of war. Now, with the north reclaimed and the south united, a new kind of pharaoh takes the throne, one who looks not just to defend Egypt, but to expand it. Forged in the crucible of war, with chariots rumbling and standards of Amun waving, the Egyptian new kingdom dawns, aiming to carry its banners beyond the desert winds, beyond the cataracts, to drive its armies past every horizon and build an empire where even the sun god himself could not outrun its name.